Alex had always dreamed of living near a lake. The rolling hills, the gentle sway of trees, and the quiet lapping of water against the shore were more than just scenery. They were a sanctuary. After years of hard work, Alex finally purchased a property with a private lake, a place where mornings began with sunlight dancing on water and evenings ended with the soft calls of birds returning to their nests. Each day brought a sense of calm, a feeling that nothing in the world could disturb the peace of this personal haven. On a bright Saturday morning, Alex decided it was the perfect day for a swim. The lake's water was clear and inviting, reflecting the sky like a mirror. With a sense of anticipation, Alex removed shoes, rolled up pants, and stepped into the cool, refreshing water. The swim was liberating, a simple pleasure after a week of emails, meetings, and city noise. As Alex floated on the surface, staring at the clouds drifting lazily above, it was hard to imagine that this calm moment would soon be interrupted by an unexpected letter. Later that afternoon, as Alex returned to the cozy lakeside cabin, a piece of mail lay waiting on the porch. It was from the HOA. Alex's initial reaction was curiosity. After all, most communications were routine notices about landscaping or minor updates. With a casual hand, Alex opened the envelope, expecting nothing more than the usual reminders. Instead, the letter contained a fine, a $1,000 charge for unauthorized recreational use of community water. Alex blinked, rereading the words. For a moment, the lake seemed to shimmer in disbelief, as if even the water was surprised. $1,000 for swimming in a lake on their own property. The fine felt jarring, almost surreal. Alex's mind raced through possible explanations. Had there been a miscommunication, a clerical error? Instead of reacting impulsively, Alex chose a calm approach. The first step was to understand the reasoning behind the fine. Sitting at the wooden table by the window, Alex pulled out the HOA documents, including the property deed, maps, and prior communications. Page after page, Alex carefully checked each clause, comparing it with the notice received. Nothing indicated that the lake itself was subject to community rules in a way that could justify such a fine. Even though confusion lingered, Alex felt a spark of determination. The situation, while unexpected, was not insurmountable. There was a clear sense that the rules could be interpreted in more than one way, and Alex decided that a thorough understanding would be key to responding appropriately. Swimming in the lake was not only a personal enjoyment, but a rightful use of the property. Alex made a mental note to gather more details, to prepare questions, and to seek clarity rather than confrontation. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Alex walked along the lake's edge, reflecting on the incident. The water, still shimmering with the colors of sunset, seemed almost to offer reassurance. There was no need to act hastily. Careful planning and a thoughtful approach could turn the situation into something manageable. Alex allowed the tension to ease, realizing that staying calm and focused was far more productive than anger or frustration. Later that evening, Alex made a cup of tea and sat on the porch, looking out at the lake. The gentle rustle of leaves and the distant call of a loon provided a soundtrack of serenity, a reminder of why this place was so important. Alex considered next steps, reviewing the bylaws more deeply, preparing questions for the HOA, and possibly attending the next meeting. There was a sense of quiet anticipation, a realization that knowledge and patience could create a solution that was fair and respectful to everyone involved. For the first time since receiving the letter, Alex felt a subtle excitement. This was not merely about a fine. It was about understanding a system, navigating it thoughtfully, and ensuring that personal rights were respected. It was an opportunity to act with intelligence and strategy rather than frustration. As night fell and stars reflected on the calm surface of the lake, Alex sipped the tea and smiled. Tomorrow would bring clarity, and with careful steps, the day at the lake would remain a source of joy rather than a cause of worry. For now, the lake was peaceful, the air was cool, and the mind was clear, a perfect beginning to a challenge that was about to unfold. The following week, Alex prepared for the HOA meeting. Unlike previous encounters with administrative boards, Alex approached this one with a sense of curiosity rather than confrontation. Knowledge was power, and preparation would be key. Alex reviewed the documents once more, highlighting the clauses related to property ownership, lake usage, and fee structures. Questions were carefully written down, along with references to the property deed. The plan was simple: remain calm, listen carefully, and speak clearly. On the day of the meeting, the HOA conference room was filled with homeowners, some chatting quietly, others reviewing papers. Karen, the board president, stood at the front with a confident demeanor. Her presence was commanding, her posture upright, as though she expected everyone to defer to her authority. Alex quietly took a seat near the middle, notebook ready, heart steady. There was no room for drama, only for facts and reason. The meeting began with routine announcements. Landscaping updates, parking rules, and upcoming community events were discussed. Then, Karen turned her attention to Alex's situation. "We've received a report regarding unauthorized use of the lake," she said, her voice firm. "A fine of $1,000 has been issued in accordance with HOA rules." Alex listened attentively, nodding politely, then waited for a natural pause. When the room quieted, Alex spoke calmly. "Thank you, Karen. I've reviewed the property deed and the HOA guidelines, and I believe this may be a misunderstanding. I'd like to clarify a few points regarding lake usage and ownership." A few heads turned in interest, including Karen's. Her confident expression remained, but there was a flicker of curiosity. "Go ahead," she said, crossing her arms. Alex explained that the lake was part of the private property included in the purchase. The deed clearly boundaries and ownership, and no clause appeared to prohibit swimming or personal use. Supporting documents were laid out on the table, along with notes highlighting relevant sections. Alex's tone was respectful yet firm, emphasizing understanding and clarity rather than accusation. Karen responded with a polite but firm rebuttal. "The HOA has guidelines to ensure safety and consistency. We enforce them evenly across the community." She gestured to the fine notice. "This is not personal, it is simply standard procedure." Alex nodded. "I understand the need for guidelines. However, in this case, the fine seems inconsistent with the property ownership and usage outlined in the documents. I'd like to review the details to find a solution that is fair and accurate." There was a pause as Karen glanced at the other board members. Some murmured agreement, others exchanged skeptical looks. The room seemed to shift slightly, sensing that this was not a routine discussion. Alex continued, asking a few clarifying questions about the rules cited in the fine, carefully noting inconsistencies and gaps. Each question was polite but precise, highlighting areas where the guidelines were vague or open to interpretation. As the meeting progressed, Alex realized the importance of listening as much as speaking. Board members discussed internally, and Karen occasionally returned to the fine, her tone measured but less assured than at the start. The process was slow, methodical, and focused on facts rather than emotions. By remaining calm, Alex kept the conversation constructive, preventing the situation from becoming tense or confrontational. By the end of the meeting, no immediate resolution had been reached. Karen maintained that the fine stood, but Alex had gathered valuable insight. The HOA rules had vague language, and the board's interpretation could be questioned. More importantly, Alex had discovered that other homeowners had experienced similar ambiguities, creating a sense that thoughtful review and discussion could lead to a fair outcome. As the meeting adjourned, Alex stepped outside, breathing deeply in the fresh air. The lake was visible through the windows, shimmering peacefully under the afternoon sun. The fine had not been rescinded, but Alex felt a quiet confidence. Understanding the rules, asking the right questions, and observing the board's reactions had provided a foundation for the next steps. That evening, Alex returned home and reviewed notes from the meeting. The lake reflected the colors of sunset, a reminder that clarity often comes with patience. Alex smiled, thinking about the next move, researching more deeply, identifying opportunities within the rules, and preparing a plan that would turn the situation into a positive result. This was not about confrontation. It was about knowledge, strategy, and fairness. By the time night fell, Alex felt a sense of anticipation. The lake remained calm, the air cool and quiet, and the mind was focused. The journey was just beginning, but one thing was certain: thoughtful preparation and careful action would make all the difference. After the HOA meeting, Alex returned home with a sense of determination. The fine had not been resolved, but the meeting had offered something more valuable: insight. There were gaps in the HOA's reasoning, vague language in the bylaws, and opportunities to clarify rights. Alex poured a cup of tea, settled at the desk by the window, and opened the stack of HOA documents, property deeds, and financial reports. The sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon, casting a golden glow over the lake, a reminder of why this property was so special. Hours passed as Alex carefully reviewed every clause that might relate to the fine. One section outlined recreational use of community property, but the language was ambiguous. It mentioned shared spaces, but did not clearly define privately owned water or lakes on individual lots. Another section covered fee adjustments and the authority of the board to impose fines. But even here, Alex noticed small inconsistencies in wording, dates, and approvals. With each discovery, the puzzle became clearer. Alex realized that the fine, though official, might not have a firm foundation. The financial reports offered further insight. Alex noticed entries that suggested certain fees had been approved without clear documentation or homeowner acknowledgement. While these were not dramatic errors, they revealed that the board's actions could be scrutinized if presented logically and respectfully. Alex highlighted the relevant sections, jotting down notes and questions. It was not about conflict. It was about understanding the system and using facts to create a fair resolution. As Alex continued, a broader picture emerged. Other homeowners had likely encountered similar ambiguities in the past, though most had accepted them without question. This insight sparked an idea. By using the HOA rules carefully and thoughtfully, it might be possible to propose an adjustment that was both fair and grounded in documented authority. Alex began drafting a plan. Review the fee structure, identify inconsistencies, and create a proposal that would clarify how rules should apply in practice. Alex's research was methodical. Every point in the plan was supported by documents, cross-referenced with the property deed and prior communications. Notes were organized in a binder, with color-coded tabs for lake usage, fines, and fee adjustments. By the end of the night, the plan was no longer abstract. It was concrete, logical, and ready to be presented when the opportunity arose. While analyzing the HOA documents, Alex also considered the human side of the situation. Karen, as the board president, was confident and assertive, but she relied heavily on assumptions rather than detailed research. By presenting a well-prepared, fact-based case, Alex could demonstrate fairness without confrontation. It became clear that knowledge and preparation were the keys to resolving the fine in a way that respected both property rights and the HOA's role. The next morning, Alex took a walk along the lake, letting the cool water touch the toes and reflecting on the discoveries. The lake sparkled under the early light, and birds glided gracefully above. It was a reminder that patience and attention to detail were as important in life as they were in resolving disputes. Alex thought about the upcoming board meeting, imagining how the plan could be presented clearly and respectfully, showing that rules could be applied logically to benefit everyone. By the afternoon, Alex had refined the proposal. Charts were prepared to illustrate usage and fee calculations, with explanations that were simple and easy to follow. Each point was framed positively, emphasizing fairness and clarity rather than pointing fingers. Alex even drafted a list of potential questions the board might raise, along with thoughtful, respectful responses. Every detail was considered to ensure that the meeting would be productive and professional. As evening fell, Alex sat on the dock, feet dangling in the water, notebook beside them. The lake remained calm, a mirror reflecting the sky and the surrounding hills. Alex smiled, feeling a mix of satisfaction and anticipation. The research had revealed opportunities not previously considered, and the plan was ready to bring clarity to the situation. What had begun as a confusing fine had transformed into a challenge that could be addressed thoughtfully, strategically, and fairly. For the first time since the letter arrived, Alex felt confident that the lake, and the enjoyment it brought, would remain a place of peace. With careful preparation, patience, and a clear understanding of the rules, the next HOA meeting would not just resolve the fine. It would create a fair and transparent outcome for everyone involved. After days of research and careful review, Alex sat at the desk, binder open, feeling a sense of clarity that had been absent since the arrival of the fine. The HOA rules were detailed, but careful study revealed opportunities for a fair resolution. Instead of reacting impulsively, Alex would approach this situation strategically. The plan was simple: focus on facts, highlight inconsistencies, and propose an adjustment that would clarify the rules for everyone. It was not about confrontation. It was about fairness, transparency, and knowledge. Alex began by organizing the findings into a clear, step-by-step outline. First, the fine itself would be addressed. Alex would show that the property deed explicitly included the lake, making recreational use a right rather than a violation. Next, the HOA bylaws would be referenced to demonstrate that certain fines required documentation that had not been consistently maintained. Finally, Alex planned to suggest a framework for fee adjustments that would ensure clarity and fairness moving forward. Each step was carefully documented, with page references and visual charts to make complex information accessible. While reviewing the plan, Alex also considered the human factor. Karen, as board president, was confident and assertive. She valued procedure and authority, but her approach often relied on assumptions rather than careful verification. By presenting a well-prepared, logical argument, Alex could gain attention without provoking defensiveness. The goal was to engage the board thoughtfully, demonstrating that a fair process could benefit everyone. To strengthen the plan, Alex reached out discreetly to other homeowners. Conversations were casual and friendly, focused on understanding their experiences and gathering perspectives about past fines and fee adjustments. Some homeowners expressed curiosity, others shared stories of confusion about certain rules. Alex listened carefully, taking notes while remaining neutral, ensuring that no one felt pressured or uncomfortable. These insights helped refine the approach, highlighting areas where clarity could be improved in the bylaws and fee structure. Once the research and discussions were complete, Alex began drafting a presentation for the next board meeting. The binder was organized by topic: lake usage, property rights, fee adjustments, and supporting documents. Charts and diagrams were prepared to illustrate how current calculations could be adjusted fairly, emphasizing transparency and accuracy. Each slide and note was crafted to communicate ideas calmly and clearly, avoiding confrontation and focusing solely on facts and solutions. Alex also anticipated questions the board might raise. What about safety? What about precedent? How do we ensure fairness for all homeowners? Thoughtful responses were prepared for each, grounded in documentation and logic. The emphasis was on fairness, clarity, and collaboration. Alex wanted the board to feel confident that the proposal was reasonable and constructive, not a challenge to authority. As the day drew to a close, Alex took a walk along the lake. The water shimmered under the late afternoon sun, reflecting the golden light and the surrounding hills. It was a reminder that careful observation and attention to detail could reveal solutions where others saw only conflict. Alex felt a growing sense of confidence. The lake had always been a place of peace and clarity, and now it symbolized strategy, patience, and thoughtful planning. That evening, Alex reviewed the plan one last time. Every document was in order, every note carefully considered. The proposal was fair, logical, and respectful, a roadmap to resolving the fine while improving understanding for the entire community. There was no rush, no need for confrontation. The power of knowledge, preparation, and calm reasoning would guide the next steps. By the time night fell, Alex felt ready. The lake was quiet, the stars reflected on its surface, and the air was cool and still. The plan was no longer just an idea. It was a strategy ready to be shared, a thoughtful approach that could transform an unfair fine into a fair and transparent resolution. Alex knew that the next board meeting would be important, but also understood that patience, preparation, and clarity were the keys to success. In that quiet moment, Alex smiled, dipping a hand into the water and feeling its calm. The journey had begun with confusion and surprise, but now it had grown into an opportunity for fairness, clarity, and personal confidence. The lake remained a place of peace, but it had also become a symbol of careful strategy, thoughtful planning, and the power of knowledge. The day of the HOA meeting arrived, and Alex felt a quiet determination. The binder was carefully organized, notes highlighted, and charts neatly prepared. Walking into the conference room, Alex noticed the familiar sight of homeowners gathered for the monthly meeting. There was a hum of quiet conversation, papers rustling, and the soft click of pens. Karen stood at the front, confident as ever, reviewing her notes. Her gaze swept across the room and settled on Alex, her expression courteous but firm. The meeting began with routine updates, landscaping schedules, maintenance announcements, and reminders about upcoming events. Alex listened attentively, noting the flow of the discussion, the tone of the board, and the reactions of other homeowners. When it was time to address the issue of the fine, Karen spoke first. "We have received a report regarding the use of the lake," she said. "A fine of $1,000 has been issued in accordance with HOA rules." Her voice was measured, professional, but there was an underlying confidence that the decision was final. Alex waited for a natural pause and then spoke. Calmly, clearly, and respectfully, Alex addressed the board. "Thank you, Karen. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this matter. I have reviewed the property deed, the HOA guidelines, and relevant documentation. I believe there may be some misunderstandings, and I'd like to present a proposal for consideration that clarifies the rules and ensures fairness for all homeowners." The room quieted. Board members exchanged glances, some leaning forward with curiosity. Karen raised an eyebrow but gestured for Alex to continue. With measured confidence, Alex began presenting the binder, carefully showing the sections of the property deed that define the lake as part of the private property. Charts illustrated how usage had been consistent with ownership rights. Notes highlighted clauses in the HOA bylaws that were ambiguous or open to interpretation. Each point was delivered with calm authority, focused on clarity and fairness. "What you're suggesting," Karen said cautiously, "is that the fine may not apply in this case." Alex nodded. "Based on the documents, it appears the fine may not be supported by the specific language in the bylaws. My goal is not to challenge the board, but to ensure that rules are applied consistently and fairly for everyone." Other homeowners began to show interest. Some whispered quietly, nodding as they followed the charts and explanations. The presentation continued with examples of how small discrepancies in fee calculations had affected other homeowners over time. Alex proposed a method for adjusting fees that was transparent, equitable, and grounded in documentation. Each slide and note emphasized fairness, not confrontation, allowing homeowners and board members to see the logic clearly. Karen spoke again, this time more measured. "Your points are noted. However, implementing changes requires discussion and consideration of precedent." Alex responded with a respectful explanation of how the proposal included a clear framework that could be applied consistently moving forward, minimizing confusion or disputes. The tone of the room shifted subtly. Homeowners seemed engaged, and murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the audience. Alex answered questions with patience and clarity, demonstrating both knowledge of the rules and a commitment to fairness. By the end of the presentation, the room had transformed. What began as a tense situation became a discussion focused on solutions, clarity, and consistency. Karen, though reserved, appeared to recognize the strength of Alex's preparation. The board members listened carefully, some nodding in agreement as Alex summarized the proposal. The fine could be reconsidered, and a transparent framework for future fee adjustments could benefit everyone. As the meeting adjourned, Alex packed the binder and exchanged polite smiles with several homeowners. The fine had not yet been rescinded, but a clear path toward resolution had been established. Alex stepped outside into the afternoon sun, feeling a sense of calm and anticipation. The presentation had been successful not because of argument, but because of preparation, respect, and clear reasoning. Later, walking along the lake, Alex reflected on the day. The water sparkled in the sunlight, as peaceful and inviting as ever. The challenge that began with a surprising fine had become an opportunity to demonstrate fairness and knowledge. Alex knew the next steps would be important, but for now, there was satisfaction in having presented a clear, logical, and thoughtful proposal that could benefit the entire community. The days following the HOA meeting were filled with quiet anticipation for Alex. The proposal had been presented clearly, logically, and respectfully, but the final outcome still depended on the board's decision. Each morning, Alex walked along the lake, letting the water and the gentle breeze calm the mind. The surface of the lake reflected the sky in perfect clarity, a reminder that patience and careful observation often revealed solutions where others saw only obstacles. On the morning of the final vote, the HOA board convened once again. The room was calm but focused. Karen, as board president, maintained a professional demeanor, reviewing notes and documents with precise attention. Board members had gathered with quiet intent, prepared to deliberate and reach a decision. Alex arrived early, carrying the binder, although it was no longer needed for presentation. It now served as a reference for any questions that might arise. The discussion began with Karen summarizing the issue and reviewing the procedural steps taken thus far. "We have reviewed the fine issued and the proposal submitted by Alex," she said. "This matter requires careful consideration before a final vote can be taken." Her tone was formal but less confident than in previous meetings, hinting at the impact of Alex's thorough preparation. Board members spoke one by one, analyzing the proposal. Some raised questions about how the fee adjustments would affect overall budgets, while others considered fairness to homeowners across the community. Alex answered each question with patience and clarity, providing references to documents and explaining the reasoning behind each point. Charts and calculations were cited where necessary, always emphasizing transparency and equity rather than criticism or blame. Karen asked a few pointed questions. "How does this approach address precedent? Are we creating a situation that might complicate future decisions?" Alex responded calmly. "The framework is designed to be consistent and transparent. It establishes clear guidelines that can be applied fairly in the future. By using documented rules and calculations, the process is clear for all homeowners and avoids ambiguity." The room fell silent for a moment, and even Karen seemed to consider the logic carefully. As the discussion continued, the focus shifted from the fine itself to the broader question of fairness and clarity. Homeowners in attendance voiced support for a structured, transparent approach. They emphasized that consistency and documentation were essential to avoid confusion in the future. Alex listened attentively, acknowledging each comment and reinforcing the proposal's foundation in fairness and accurate records. The atmosphere in the room began to shift. What had initially been a tense and potentially confrontational situation now felt like a collaborative effort. The board recognized that Alex's preparation and clarity had illuminated the path to a solution that respected both the homeowner's rights and the HOA's responsibility. Karen, while maintaining professionalism, appeared more measured and thoughtful, understanding that the proposal was not about challenge but about structure. After thorough discussion, the moment of decision arrived. The board members cast their votes in sequence, first on the question of rescinding the fine, and then on implementing the proposed adjustments for transparency in future fee calculations. The results reflected careful deliberation. The fine was, and the new framework for fee adjustments was approved. Murmurs of approval and relief spread quietly through the room. Alex felt a sense of calm satisfaction. The outcome had been achieved not through argument or confrontation, but through preparation, clarity, and a commitment to fairness. Karen nodded politely, acknowledging the professionalism and thoughtfulness of Alex's approach. Other homeowners expressed appreciation, though quietly, for the clarity and fairness the proposal had introduced. Later, walking back to the lake, Alex reflected on the process. What had begun as an unexpected and puzzling fine had evolved into an opportunity to improve understanding and ensure fairness. Patience, research, and careful planning had transformed a potential conflict into a positive outcome. The water sparkled under the afternoon sun, serene and inviting as ever, a reminder that thoughtful action often leads to calm resolution. By the evening, Alex sat on the dock with feet in the water, notebook beside them, reviewing the events of the day. There was no need for celebration or triumphalism, just satisfaction in knowing that fairness, preparation, and respect had guided the situation to the right conclusion. The lake, as peaceful as it had always been, reflected not just the sky but the steady confidence that comes from thoughtful, patient action. The days following the board's vote felt almost surreal to Alex. The $1,000 fine had been removed, and the newly approved framework for fee adjustments promised clarity and fairness for all homeowners. The lake, once a source of tension, had returned to its role as a place of peace and enjoyment. Alex walked along the shore that morning, letting the water lap gently against the dock, reflecting on how patience, preparation, and careful planning had led to this outcome. Homeowners began to take notice of the changes. Small conversations in the neighborhood shifted from uncertainty about rules to curiosity about how decisions were made. Several neighbors approached Alex, quietly thanking them for the clear explanation and effort to ensure fairness. Alex listened attentively, appreciating their perspectives, but always maintained a humble and calm demeanor. It was not about recognition, but about creating a balanced system where rules were understood and applied consistently. Karen, the board president, was slower to adjust to the new framework. She maintained her formal demeanor in meetings, but there was a subtle change in how she approached decisions. The clear, documented methodology Alex had presented made it easier for the board to justify actions and reduced ambiguity in their responsibilities. Karen acknowledged this in small ways, asking questions about the calculations rather than disputing the results. It was a quiet shift in dynamics, an understanding that fairness and clarity benefited everyone, including those in leadership. Alex also noticed a renewed sense of confidence among other homeowners. They began asking questions at meetings, contributing suggestions, and seeking clarity on guidelines that had previously seemed confusing. The lake, once a point of contention, had become a symbol of thoughtful planning and balanced decision-making. Alex realized that the impact of this experience went beyond the fine. It had fostered an environment where knowledge and preparation could guide positive outcomes. One afternoon, as Alex swam in the lake, the sun sparkling on the water's surface, a group of homeowners approached the dock. They were curious about the process that had led to the change. Alex explained the steps taken: careful review of documents, gathering information, thoughtful preparation, and respectful presentation at the meeting. The homeowners listened, impressed by the clarity and calm approach. It was clear that strategy and patience could accomplish far more than argument or confrontation. With the fine removed, Alex finally felt fully at ease. The lake was open for swimming without concern, and each visit brought a renewed sense of peace. The framework for fee adjustments provided clarity that would prevent confusion in the future, ensuring that rules were applied consistently and fairly. Alex marveled at how a situation that began as an unexpected challenge had transformed into an opportunity to improve understanding for the entire community. Even Karen seemed to adjust to the new approach. During subsequent meetings, she referred to the documented process Alex had introduced, acknowledging that it helped guide fair decisions. While still maintaining her formal leadership style, there was less rigidity and more attention to clarity and consistency. The board's decisions became smoother, homeowners more confident, and the community atmosphere calmer. That evening, Alex sat on the dock with feet in the water, the lake reflecting the soft colors of sunset. There was a sense of quiet satisfaction in knowing that careful research, thoughtful planning, and respectful communication had resolved the fine and improved the community process. The lake, peaceful as ever, symbolized not just personal enjoyment, but the benefits of preparation and clarity in addressing challenges. As the stars began to appear in the sky, Alex reflected on the journey. What had seemed like an unreasonable fine had become an opportunity to turn uncertainty into clarity. The process had required patience, intelligence, and careful strategy, but it had also brought a sense of calm and fairness to the entire community. Alex felt proud, not in a boastful way, but in the satisfaction that comes from approaching a challenge thoughtfully and successfully. By the end of the week, the lake was busy with quiet enjoyment. Homeowners swam, fished, and relaxed without concern, guided by the clear framework that Alex had helped establish. The fine had been removed, rules clarified, and the atmosphere had shifted toward cooperation and understanding. The lake remained a place of peace, but it now carried the added meaning of fairness, strategy, and thoughtful action. The weeks after the board's decision brought a sense of calm and balance to Alex's life. The $1,000 fine had been removed, and the newly established framework for fee adjustments ensured clarity and fairness for all homeowners. The lake, which had once been the source of confusion and tension, was now a place of peaceful enjoyment. Alex spent mornings swimming, afternoons reading on the dock, and evenings watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and pink. It was a rhythm that felt restorative, grounding, and deeply satisfying. Homeowners in the neighborhood began to notice the shift. Small conversations at the edge of the lake or along walking paths turned to appreciation for the new clarity in the HOA rules. Many quietly expressed gratitude to Alex for approaching the situation thoughtfully and respectfully. No one had been embarrassed or alienated. Instead, the community had gained a process that was transparent, fair, and predictable. It was a quiet victory that spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. Karen, too, seemed to adapt to the new dynamic. While she maintained her role as board president, there was a noticeable change in her approach to meetings. She referenced the new framework when explaining decisions, acknowledging that clarity and fairness benefited both the board and the homeowners. Alex noticed subtle nods during discussions, a silent recognition that preparation, respect, and logic could guide positive change. Even without overt acknowledgement, the result was clear. The community was functioning more smoothly than it had before. Alex often reflected on the journey from confusion to clarity. What had started as a perplexing find became a catalyst for change, a demonstration of the power of preparation, research, and thoughtful communication. Each step had been deliberate, reviewing documents, organizing notes, consulting with homeowners, presenting the proposal calmly, and patiently addressing questions. The outcome was a testament to strategy, patience, and the value of acting with integrity. On one particular evening, Alex sat on the dock with a notebook, sketching the reflection of the setting sun on the water. The lake's surface was calm, rippling gently with the breeze. Families nearby enjoyed quiet picnics, children played at the water's edge, and the community moved in a rhythm that felt harmonious. Alex thought about the contrast between the tension of the past few weeks and the serene present. Knowledge and patience had transformed the situation, creating an environment of understanding and fairness. Other homeowners began to seek advice on similar matters, not because of conflict, but because they appreciated Alex's calm, strategic approach. Questions about bylaws, documentation, and transparency were answered thoughtfully, emphasizing clarity over argument. Alex realized that the experience had created a ripple effect, a community empowered to navigate rules thoughtfully, with confidence and respect. Even the lake itself seemed to embody the lessons learned. Each swim reminded Alex of the importance of observation, patience, and careful planning. The water reflected more than the sky. It reflected the calm confidence that comes from addressing challenges with clarity, fairness, and foresight. The initial find, which had caused confusion and concern, now felt like a distant memory, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and balance. As night fell, stars reflected on the lake's surface, twinkling softly. Alex sat quietly, reflecting on the transformation. The situation had required intelligence, preparation, and restraint. By focusing on facts, understanding the rules, and presenting a thoughtful solution, Alex had not only resolved the find but had improved the community process for everyone. It was a victory defined not by confrontation but by wisdom and careful action. In the weeks and months that followed, life at the lake returned to its peaceful rhythm. The HOA operated with greater transparency, homeowners felt confident in the clarity of rules, and Alex continued to enjoy the sanctuary of the property. The lake, ever calm and inviting, had become a symbol of thoughtful planning, fairness, and harmony. Alex understood that challenges, when approached with patience and preparation, could lead to meaningful, lasting results. With the gentle sounds of the water and the evening breeze, Alex smiled, dipping toes into the lake. The journey had begun with surprise and uncertainty, but it had ended with fairness, understanding, and peace. The lake remained a place of joy, a reflection of careful thought, strategic action, and the calm satisfaction of a challenge successfully met. For Alex, the story had closed not with conflict, but with harmony, both within the community and within the heart. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next mystery on HOA Hunter Stories.